Ma'am,
Please share the
recording
first
has
slide.
begun. Okay, I'll stop.
Ma'am, we are live.
So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to yet another PhD series to celebrate the Rashtriya Poshan Ma 2021, converging towards a healthy walk through life. Today, we have another very interesting presentation by Ms. Sampada Agnihotri on fish and seafood for improving nutritional status. We all know that entire country is eating more and more carbs, which is leading to prevalence of non-communicable diseases. Diabetes is number one among them. Indian diets are lacking in protein. And on the second fact is, the irony is, the three-fourth of this country, India, has a coastline. That means there is no dearth of seafoods and fish in this country. Yet, there is a very poor consumption of fish and seafood products in this country, and most of it is exported to Europe and other countries. So, maybe Sampada can give us an insight about what is the protein content of fish and seafood, what is the prevalence, what is the industrial um, potential, and what is the fact that is happening, what are the government policies, and why in this year's Poshan Ma celebration, fish and seafood has a special improving nutritional status. Today's presentation will be moderated by Ms. Garvita Karbanda, and I now invite Garvita to carry on the further deliberations. Over to you, Garvita.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. As we are celebrating uh, our National Nutrition Month, here's another interesting topic of the day, that is fish and seafood for improving nutritional status, which will be presented today by Ms. Sampada Agnihotri. It's an honor for me to introduce our speaker of the day, Ms. Sampada Agnihotri. Ms. Sampada has done her BSc from Department of Foods and Nutrition, Faculty of Family and Community Sciences, the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. She has done her Masters in Dietetics from Department of Foods and Nutrition, Faculty of Family and Community Sciences, the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. She has cleared her UGC NET in 2019 and currently pursuing her PhD in Foods and Nutrition from the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda under the guidance of Professor Uma Iyer ma'am. She has been a visiting faculty at the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, Gujarat from December 2020 to July 2021. She has worked as a clinical nutritionist at the Baroda Heart Institute and Research Center, Gujarat from May 2017 to May 2018. She has won third prize in Global Cardiometabolic Conclave in July 2020 for oral presentation, paper titled Cardiometabolic Risk Factors Among Overweight and Obese College Going Youth. She has presented various papers and posters in conferences and webinars. So I request Ms. Sampada to proceed with her talk. Over to you, Sampada.
Thank you, Garvita, for this very warm and kind information. And before starting the presentation, I would like to thank our mentor, Professor Dr. Manisha Nambiar ma'am, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you, ma'am, so much. So now I'll be sharing my presentation. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Sampada, it is.
Okay, okay. Um, Good morning, everyone. Good morning, one and all present here. Today's topic is fish and seafood for improving nutritional status. Uh, and before starting with it, what is the Sustainable Development Goals? So here I would like to say some of the things that are the sustainable development is the organizing principle for meeting human development goals while simultaneously sustaining the ability of natural systems to provide the nature resources and ecosystem services on which the economy and society depends. SDGs involve in satisfying the needs of present population without endangering the capability of the future population to satisfy its own needs. So today I'll be focusing on mainly on the SDG number 14, the life below water, and along with that the interlinked SDGs also. So, the Sustainable Development Goals 2 and 14 outline achieving food and nutrition security and ending malnutrition as global priorities by focusing on the significance of sustaining food production and securing year-round around to diverse foods. In order to optimally harness from two SDGs guiding pillars and anticipated benefits in the 21st century global health dynamics, it is increasingly becoming imperative to track dietary diversity, quality, and nutritional outcomes in the diverse global population segments. Among animal source foods, the importance of fish for food and nutrition security is increasingly being recognized as it is emerging potential in addressing hidden hunger. The Food and Agriculture Organization reports that fish and seafood now contribute to 15% of average animal protein consumed by 3 million people worldwide. So, the diet diversity as a measure of the number of individual foods or food group consumed in a given period of time, usually measured during 1 to 3 days. So, the sustainable growth of this important aquatic food system to provide a source of nutritious seafood for a growing population, providing important nutritional and health benefits to women of reproductive age, young children, and youth. So, this is the picture of my plate for the day. So, in that, the ICMR and along with NIN recommends the pulses and legumes and meat poultry that also includes fish and seafoods approximately 90 grams. Furthermore, the expansion of fish supply through aquaculture has significantly contributed to higher penetration of fish seafood across urban and rural areas, including regions where people have traditionally eaten little fish. So, in the scaling up nutrition framework and roadmap, 1000 days global effort, the importance of essential fatty acids for brain development and cognition affecting individual, national, and global development, as well as fish being a rich source of essential fats, have been highlighted. So, now what are fish? So, India has a coastline of 5100 kilometer and approximately or over 200 edible fish varieties are known commercially important. So marine types are sardine, mackerel, tuna, catfish, scombroids, then brown duck, ribbonfish, prawns, and cuttle. Carps, katla, rohu, mrigal, murrels, and hilsa are the main catch from inland water. In India, bulk of the fish is sold in fresh, that is 65 to 70%, and dry, that is 10 to 15% condition, with very little processing and value addition. So, although fish contains complete protein and can be an alternative for meat in the diet, fish consumption per capita is far lower than that of meat. So, now coming to the classification of fish, fish has been classified into two further forms. The first is fins, the another one is shell. Among the fins, the white and the oily fish are being classified. Among the white, the round, that is cod, haddock, and whiting are the examples of fish, and in flight, this is the plaice and soles. The oily fish like mackerels and herrings are its examples. And coming to the shellfishes, it has been classified into mollusks and crustaceans. The mollusks are the examples of oysters, clams, scallops, and mussels. And the crustaceans are lobsters, shrimps, crabs, and prawns. So now coming to the composition and nutritive value of fish and seafood. So commonly consumed fish are carp, rohu, sardine, mackerel, pomfrets, sailfish, prawn, ribbonfish, sole, bombay duck, catfish, and crab. So what are its carbohydrate compounds and its compositions? So the shellfish has less fat and more carbohydrate than finfish. Like meat, fish contains some glycogen in muscle tissues, and in the live fish, glycogen is the source of stored energy. Oysters are notable for their high content of glycogen, on an average of 2 to 3%. So coming to the protein part of it, fish is an excellent source of protein, as we all know, and it has been recognized for its quality and its quantity. So they contain around 20% of protein, and the biological value of fish protein is 80. And they are the rich source of lysine and methionine, hence it has supplementary value with cereals and pulses. Coming to the fat part, fish contains less amount of fat compared to meat and poultry. The lipid content of both fish and prawn is very low and varies within a very narrow range of 1 to 2.8%. Crab small contains nearly 10% fat. Fish contains saturated fatty acids approximately 40%, then the monounsaturated fatty acids 25%. Polyunsaturated fatty acids when classified under omega-3 fatty acid that is of 25% and omega-6 fatty acid that is of 10%. Freshwater fish contains eicosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid, which are omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids. Coming to the in-white fish, any fat present in the fish is stored in the liver. Only traces are found, and only the minute traces are found in the lost of the white fish and seawater fish, and live in the seabed. In oily fish, fat is distributed the flesh in the muscle fibers. The amount of fat may vary from 8% to 15%. Coming to the mineral part of the fish and seafood, fish is rich in calcium, particularly small fish when eaten with bones. Marine fish or fish are good source of iodine, selenium fluoride. Selenium is a powerful antioxidant. Oysters are good source of copper and iron. Sodium content of fresh water fish is slightly less than meat. Shellfish, such as oysters, are among the nature's richest source of zinc. The bioavailability of iron and zinc is higher than from plant food. Sometimes tilefish, mackerel, swordfish, and shark may get contaminated with mercury, which is like toxic to the body. Coming to the vitamins part, seafoods contain significantly amounts of vitamin that is B12, especially shellfishes. Fish liver oils are excellent source of fat soluble vitamins. Shark liver oil contains 10,000 to 24,000 international unit of vitamin A per gram of oil. Then the rohu contains vitamin C, fish and good source of niacin and vitamin D. Seafoods contain significant amounts of vitamin B12, especially shellfish. Then the fish protein concentrate, it is the name given to the edible fish product suitable for human consumption prepared for fresh fish. The fish protein concentrate an essentially odorless powder that is very in protein 70 to 80% with very high lysine content. It has high biological value protein. It is light in color from and free from grittiness and can be incorporated at 10 to 13% in a variety of dishes to supplement daily diet. Fish protein foods developed are fish protein concentrate, non-deodorized fish flour, fish protein enriched cornstarch with fish cakes, fish potato flakes, fish sausages, and fermented fish products. These products can be easily incorporated into any snacks. So hence that increases the nutritional value of the snack. So coming to the fish and seafood consumption during pregnancy. So what are its benefits? So the long chain omega-3 fatty acids mainly found in the fish and seafood are essential for optimal brain development. The iodine essential for thyroid function and neurodevelopment can be found in seafood. And the American Academy of Pediatrics also recommends children and pregnant and the breastfeeding women eat 1 to 2 servings of fish per week, with sustainably caught of raised fish and shellfish offering the best choices. When pregnant, increasing the daily intake of omega-3 fatty acids, just like eicosapentaenoic acid and the docosahexaenoic acids, lowers the risk of having a premature baby that is less than 37 weeks by 11%, and lowers the risk of having an early premature baby less than 34 weeks by 42%, and it also reduces the risk of having a small baby less than 2500 gram by 10%. So, what are the hitting milestone when women consume seafood during pregnancy? So, researchers have shown that mothers who eat fish 2 to 3 times each week during pregnancy have babies who reach this month milestone more quickly. At 6 months, the baby starts copying sound, holding up head, recognize family, and at the 18 months of age, he could or she could climb stairs, drink from a cup, and draw. So according to FDA, fish are part of a healthy eating pattern and provides protein, healthy omega-3 fatty acids, more vitamin B12 and D than any other type of food. Iron, which is important for infants, young children, and women who are pregnant, who could become pregnant also. Other minerals like selenium, zinc, and iodine are also great source of fish and seafoods. So, premature birth is the leading cause of death for children under 5 years old worldwide, accounting for close to 1 million deaths annually. So, premature babies are at high risk of a range of long term conditions, including visual impairment, development delay, and learning difficulties. Hence, researchers have been shown that consumption of fish and seafood have drastically and dramatically reduces the risk of dangerous preterm birth diseases. Coming to the fish and seafood for children, fish and shellfish supply the nutrients, vitamins, and omega-3 essentials for strong bones, brain development, and a healthy heart and immune system. Protein, vitamin B6, B12, and D, and omega-3 acids are a key nutrient focused in seafood that promotes healthy growth and development throughout child and can help minimize chronic disease risk later in life, such as NCDs. The big brains, so our brains nearly consist 60% of fat, and omega-3 fatty acids found in seafood are among the most crucial molecules that determine brain's ability to perform. So, what are the coming to the healthy eyes? Along with supporting healthy eye development, seafood's omega-3 also supports ability to detect light, and nearly half of eye's light detecting cell structure is made up of omega-3. Then the strong bones, how fish and seafood help in developing the bones. So fish, especially salmon and swordfish, is naturally packed with vitamin D, a bone strengthening nutrient that is naturally present in very few foods. It is necessary for building bones and teeth and assisting in absorption of calcium. Seafood is an excellent source of lean protein essential for a child's body development and especially during times of rapid growth. Protein is found in every cell of our body, and hence it is requirement for continuous repair and growth of tissues, including bone, skin, and muscles. Fish and seafood consumption also helps to reduce the stress in the children who consumes more seafood have less anxiety and better focus. Omega-3 have been shown to help reduce behavior problems and aggression in child and their parents. Coming to the breathwell part, research shown that omega-3 dexahexaenoic acid improved the children's immune response, and kids have a lower risk of some allergic diseases and upper respiratory infections. So the best seafood choices for kids are, together with the Environmental Protection Agency and the FDA, recently issued advices on choosing the healthiest fish to eat. So many nutritious and safe fish choices include. First one is the tuna. Tuna is the best. So the consumption of tuna, just like from the canned light tunas, that is solid or junk, are considered as the best choice for children to eat, recommending 2 to 3 serving a week. Light tuna, which means it has a pinkish color, includes fishes such as skipjack. This is considered a better choice than the white albacore and yellow fish tuna, although these are still considering good choices with one serving a week recommended. Coming to the more good choices, salmon, trout, herring are considered low in mercury and high in brain boosting docosahexaenoic acid. Other types of seafood considering best choices including shrimp, cod, catfish, crab, scallops, pollock, tilapia, whitefish, trout, perch, flounder, etc. Then coming to the sardine, anchovies, crawfish, etc. are the good choices for kids. Choices to avoid, it is the best to avoid some of the fish which are high in mercury, that are talfish, shark, swordfish, king mackerel, orange ruffy, then marlin, big eye, and bluefin tuna. So these are some of the advices about eating fish. So this they have given the table that what could be the best choices. So it could be eaten like 2 to 3 servings in a week. This is the whole list of it that which could be considered as the best choices. So some of them are anchovies, herring, lobsters, muller lobster, shrimps, shad, scallops, squids, tilapia, etc., are commonly consumed. Coming to the good choices that should be eat one serving a week, could be carps, crops, halibuts, mahi, then dolphin fish, then the Spanish mackerel, tilefish. This could be the good choices, and the choices to avoid that are high in mercury level. That is, like we already discussed, some like king mackerel, marlin, orange roughy, shark, swordfish, tilefish, tuna, vijay. So, how to identify the serving? So, this is the chart that basically used to classify that how much amount of serving a adult requires and a children require. So for an adult it is recommended a 4 ounce, that translates into 112 gram, and for children ages from 4 to 7, the 2 ounces, that to the 56 grams. And these are some of the practices being used by, and some of the practices recommended by the EPA and the US Food and Drug for the better consumption of fish and seafood among pregnant women, breastfeeding women, for parents, caregivers, and for young children. So, scope for fishery sector in India. So, these are some of the classified fish and fisheries methods of fisheries been identified in India by the Ministry of Fishery. So, first coming to the capture fishes. So, capture fishes are classified into marine and inland. The marine for the fishers go for coastal fishing, deep sea fishing. Then in the inland one, fisher go for reservoir, ravines, and estuaries. Then coming to the aquaculture, the aquaculture farmers generally do the fishing in marine, brackish water, fresh water, cold water, ornamental fishes. So they cultivate fishes like marine fishes, like been classified in fishes like cobia, sea bass, and the groupers. Other items like seaweeds. In the brackish water, it come fishes like sea bass. Then the crustaceans like shrimps, tiger shrimp, white shrimp. Then other like crabs and mussels. Freshwater have this Indian major carps like rohu, katla, mrigal. Exotic carps, grass carp, then silver carp, common carp, etc. Catfishes like Pegasus, mugger, etc., tilapia, and some medium and minor carps like kalbasu, sarana, etc., and some traditional fishes also. Then some cold water like trout, marsil, etc., and in ornamental fishes, some wide varieties are being included. So, coming to the importance of fishery to developing countries. So, what are the exact importance that could lead in, or that could be beneficially in the growing of fish industry in developing countries? So, around 1.5 billion people depend among fish for food, income, and livelihood. 2.6 billion people receive more than 20% of their animal protein from fish compared to 8% in developed countries, up to 50% of animal protein in some countries. Then coming to the fisheries that contribute to the secure livelihood, that is commercial and small scale, and the artisanals also, that it also benefits in human health, that food security and nutrition aspects also gets covered, economic and community development, regional and international trade, export earnings, then the environmental health and the biodiversity conservation and the security. So coming to the aquaculture, so what could be the aquaculture? So later in few slides is how the aquaculture helps in the developing countries and what are its benefits. We'll discuss. So what is aquaculture? Aquaculture is the farming of aquatic organisms in both coastal and inland areas, involving interventions in the rearing process to enhance production. It is probably the fastest growing food producing sector and now accounts for 50% of the world's fish that is used for food. So, what is the aquaculture development? So, about 580 aquatic species are currently farmed all over the world, and that represents the wealth genetic diversity both within and among the species. That also help to maintain our food security and nutrition. Aquaculture is practiced by both some of the poorest farmers in the developing countries and by multinational companies also. So eating fish is part of the cultural tradition of many people, and in terms of health benefits, it is an excellent nutritional profile. So the good source of protein, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, and essential micronutrients. Aquatic plants such as seaweed are also an important resource for aquaculture, as they also provide the nutrition and livelihood and other important industrial uses. So, what are the seaweeds and microalgae? So, algae, including seaweeds and microalgae, contribute nearly 30% of world aquaculture production, measured in the weight, primarily seaweeds. So, seaweeds and microalgae generate socioeconomic benefits to tens of thousands of households, primarily in coastal communities, including numerous women empowered by seaweed cultivation. Various human health contributions, environmental benefits, and ecosystem services of seaweeds and microalgae have drawn increasing attention to untapped potential of seaweeds and microalgae cultivation. So, a sustainable aquaculture uh, strategy needs a recognition of the fact that farmers earn a fair reward from farming, to ensure that benefits and costs are shared equitably, to promote wealth and job creation, to also make sure that enough food is accessible to all, to manage the environment for the benefit of future generations, to ensure that aquaculture development is orderly with both authorities and industry well organized. Coming to the ultimate aspiration for aquaculture to develop its full potential, that is, to build communities prosper and people at a healthier manner. There are more opportunities for improved livelihood with an increased income and better nutrition. Farmers and women are being empowered. So, how aquaculture fits into the UN's sustainability goals? So, first and the foremost, shellfish beds help restore our waterways. So, shellfish such as oysters, clams, and mussels are not just a beach barbecue staple, but they serve an important role in waterways also. So, some areas these shellfish have been largely lost from coastal ecosystems. So, restoring those areas and the farming of shellfish beds, allowing these bivalves to clean the water as they filter feeds, serves as a habitat for smaller organisms and even help prevent shoreline erosion, preserving ecosystems, safeguarding biodiversity, and reversing land degradation and significant components of sustainable aquaculture. So, which sustainable goals have been attached to the first point of it, the clean water and sanitation, then responsible consumption and reproduction, life below water, and life on land. Second one is the producing more seafood can alleviate food insecurity. Although oceans over 70% of the earth, they account for less than 2% of human food production. Luckily, the number of sustainable aquaculture farms, sorry, sustainable aquaculture farms continues to increase to meet the demands of our growing population. Aquaculture is done responsibly as it is in the United States, is increasingly recognized as one of the most environmentally sustainable ways to produce food and protein. Leading health experts promote the value of adding seafood to one's diet, especially for people who are pregnant or nursing and children. So, farm seafood can lead to improved nutrition and food security for many communities. So, these are some of the sustainable growth uh, goals linked with it. Coming to the aquaculture creates economic opportunities. Aquaculture creates year-round jobs, supports resilient working waterfronts and the coastal communities, and can provide sustainable economic growth. Aquaculture also drives employment in other areas of industry such as seafood processing and feed and equipment manufacturing. Then the sustainable aquaculture advances technology. So the aquaculture also helps in farming techniques, focuses on the food production, environmental stewardship. Then it also advanced technology such as free ocean reports mapping and the plant tools could then further which analyzes the ocean neighborhoods. It provides the critical insights to make informed decision and expand sustainable aquaculture opportunities while also minimizing the potential environment impacts. The It is also provide detailed information about habitat and species, current industries in the area, and potential hazard to aquaculture. Coming to the wild and farmed seafood in good for our health or your health. This is the main point. The why UN sustainability goals attached to the aquaculture. So aside from being such plain delicious seafood, seafood is also great for our health. It contains nutrients that are linked to a multitude of benefits, including a reduced risk of coronary heart disease. Shellfish and fish, particularly salmon, tuna, and trout, are also a source of omega-3 fatty acids which promote heart and brain development. Reliable sources of omega-3 are important because our bodies are unable to produce them and they must be obtained through food. As aquaculture continues to expand seafood production, more people can include seafood in their diets, improving nutrition and well-being. Coming to the sixth point, aquaculture can preserve cultural heritage. So, an increasing number of fish pond managers are working to the rehabilitation of these ponds and restored sites, which have played important parts in the histories. As more fish ponds are revitalized, the supply of local seafood, jobs, and other revenue streams can also grow. So, it also promotes the economic growth, productive employment, and sustainable resource management. Then the sustainability fosters international collaboration. So marine aquaculture partnerships benefits from the sharing of costs, products, equipment, data, and the technologies. So collaboration helps us to work towards innovative technology, promote sustainable development, and partner to use the oceans in a better way. Coming to the eighth point and the last one, aquaculture is a resource efficient food production method for a changing environment. So, aquaculture offers many environmental benefits relative to other forms of livestock farming. Marine aquaculture operations typically have a smaller carbon footprint and require less land and fresh water. They are more efficient at converting feed into protein for human consumption than beef, pork, and poultry. The expansion of sustainable aquaculture is vital in increasing food production. Then coming to the sustainable development and environmental conservation with respect to fisheries. The characterization and assessment of the present state of living aquatic resources and their environment. So the combination of population growth uh, and efforts to raise living standards has created stress on the financial, physical, and human resources of developing countries. It has often exacerbated poverty and triggered migration to coastal areas. This has led to overfishing and partly through the introduction of inappropriate technology contributed to the degradation of the environment. Lakes and rivers have also been altered by human activities, nearly always with negative consequences for fisheries. Water quality has become a major concern in aquaculture. Freshwater fisheries are adversely affected by the lowering of lake levels and drainage of wetlands, and by water extraction, filtration, and the construction of dams and the regulation of rivers for navigation and flood prevention. So, coastal ecosystems such as estuaries, marsh, shallow bays, and wetlands, mangroves, coral reefs, sea grass beds play a major role in life cycles of many economically important species by providing breeding, nursing, nursery, and feeding grounds. About 95% of the world's marine production originates from coastal ecosystem. Their accelerated degradation by land reclamation, drainage, coastal reconstruction, and other competing uses now poses a serious threat to marine fisheries. So, what are the threats for this marine and the fishery industries? So, how to conserve and sustainable use the ocean, sea, and marine resources for sustainable development. So, what are the problems that we are facing these days? Is the sustainable of our ocean is under severe threat. So, the plastic and the marine population is becoming a severe threat to ocean and the other water bodies. So, generally, what happens is the plastic population. Um, generally transformed, and the temperature of the oceans and the sea gets increased. So around a quarter of the carbon dioxide that humanity emits into the atmosphere is ultimately dissolved in the ocean, and here it forms carbonic acid, altering ocean chemistry and decreasing the pH of the surface of water. This increased acidity reduces the amount of available carbonate ions, and essential building blocks used by many marine species for shell and skeleton formation. So that further increases the acidification and further collapse the fishery. So over 3 billion people rely on oceans for their livelihood. So this should taken care of, and this should be been addressed extensively. So coming to the second one, that zones so are rising at the an alarm rates. So from 400 into 400 that's been occurring to 2008 and to 700 in 2017. So dead zones are areas of water that lack sufficient oxygen to support marine life. Coming to the over half of the marine key biodiversity areas are the area not protected. On an average, only 1.2% of national research budgets are allocated for ocean science. So, about half of the countries worldwide have adopted specific initiatives to support small scale fisheries. So, this has been given by the Sustainable Development Goals Report 2021 and been discussed in detail also, that how the measures could be taken care to reduce the severe threats that been attached to the ocean and sea. So in conclusion, oceans, seas and coastal areas provide the world with numerous goods fundamental to human well-being and global food security. Fisheries and aquaculture offer ample opportunities to reduce hunger and improve nutrition, alleviate poverty, generate economic growth, and ensure better use of natural resources. Aquaculture is the fastest growing food sector and has the potential to produce the fish needed to help meet the demands of a growing population. However, overfishing threatens livelihood. Unmanaged aquaculture expansion can cause pollution, and rising levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere contribute to ocean acidification. FAO initiates and initiatives focus on promoting good governance, participatory, participatory decision making processes, and best practices in fisheries. FAO's Blue Growth Initiative aims at harmonizing the environmental, social, and economic aspects of living aquatic resources to ensure equitable benefits for communities. With India home to a third of the world's malnourished children, the government has launched the Poshan Abhiyan with fixed goals to reduce low birth weight, stunting, and undernutrition. The prevalence of underweight and in children up to 6 years of age by 6% in 3 years at the rate of 2% a year. The anemic young children, adolescent girls, and women to 49 years of age by 9% and at the rate of 3% a year. So, the food choices of food consumption patterns are influenced by a number of factors that include gender, socioeconomic factor, level of education, nutrition knowledge, and social and cultural factor. Therefore, there is a need to address the adequate and to impart the adequate knowledge regarding the fish and seafood, as is one of the important food groups to be consumed in the diet. So its awareness and the campaign and the promotion regarding the fish and seafood is being, it should be considered doing on a comprehensive based. So here are some of the references that I have used, and here I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sampada, for beautifully organized and well described presentation. Now the panel is open for question and answers.
Thank
Vanisha,
you
would
very
you like
much. Yes, ma'am. Uh, uh, yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I can
Sampana,
see.
I must congratulate you. I am really impressed by the flow of your presentations, the topics that you have covered, and
Thank you,
how
ma'am.
you've connected. the need for increased protein in this country and the sources which are right there in the country. But my question to you is, does religion have an impact on the consumption of fish and seafood? If yes, how? And the second is, you've spoken about majority about the sea foods, but in India, there are so many small little water bodies in every rural or tribal communities. How do you think they can be a source of protein?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, starting with the first question, that the cultural beliefs. Yes, there are some cultural beliefs prevailing in India. But if because there are certain cultures which do not allow to eat the non-vegetarian foods, but looking at the aspects of the nutrients available from the fish and seafood, the uh, the communities and the culture at large should consider it as that we are not going to impose our thoughts on them, but looking at the aspects of this would definitely benefit them and will help to overcome the all this undernutrition or the malnutrition that is prevailing in India. And second, those are some of the small seafoods that are being available or that are being produced in the village areas or that have been not been explored yet. So there are certain traditional farmings regarding to fishes being um, done from the traditions or from the cultures. So this actually requires the sensitization, the knowledge, and the promotion of those areas so that we could help them to include in our daily diets. And yes, they are rich in proteins which have the good biological values. So in that way, the promotion itself will help to increase the protein levels. So I hope, ma'am, I able to justify your question.
Okay, partly yes, but others can add, and Garvita, you can continue.
Any other questions?
I want Mansi, Meghna, Neha kindly ask questions. Everybody should have two questions.
Ma'am, I don't have a question, but I would definitely like to thank Sampada for this presentation. Like you said, she covered so many things in her presentation. I was wondering with the topic, what could one do? But then she's given an overall picture, a complete picture, health and nutrition included, the industrial perspective, the aquaculture perspective, and how this can help meeting food and nutrition security. So I would really like to thank Sampada. Congratulations, Sampada.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your inputs also. Even Mansi ma'am have a lot of inputs in this. So
Yeah,
thank
but
you so much, ma'am.
Sampada, those were just ideas. You put it across like this, it is really good.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I just wanted to know, Vanisha ma'am, this is just a question in general. Uh, I couldn't find anything for Gujarat state. Any policies which recommend consumption of fish products or including them in the national programs?
Yeah, ma'am. There is a dearth regarding the Gujarat policies, Gujarat fishery industries, but
Right.
even the states, different states have been collaborating with each other. So on the Ministry of Fishery sites, they have all their collaborations, and they are trying to gain a certain knowledge regarding this aquaculture, and they're trying to develop all this aquaculture. So what will happen that if the aquacultures have been developed in the different parts of Gujarat itself, then it would help to overcome the nutrition aspects also and the food
Right.
security. But they are still working. So in Poshan Abhiyan only, they are going to focus on all these aspects.
Correct, correct. So I think whatever some little information is available about Orissa again, because it being a
Yes,
coastal state, that
coastal.
is the, yeah. So that is the information available. But like you said, I think they're still working on and trying to promote it in Gujarat state.
Yes, ma'am. They are still trying to, because Gujarat is most, we have the vegetarian people. It's not like that everyone follows the vegetarian diet, but still there is a need to incorporate all these fish dishes into our population. But they are still working on those policies and incorporation protein rich fish and seafoods.
Correct, correct. Thank you, Sampada.
Thank you.
Sampada, I have a question. May I?
Yes, sure, sure.
You said that omega-3 fatty acid have a role in controlling preterm births, right?
Yes, yes.
So, these seafoods have any role in controlling genetic disorders or genetic defects? Have you studied anything regarding that?
Regarding the genetic defects, no, I haven't looked into the genetic defects. But yes, if when the child is within the womb, if we give the proper nutrition that is rich in omega 3 fatty acids and the omega 6 fatty acids and all other different proteins, so they may prevent or they may try to prevent all these genetic disorders if the baby is being born with full. Immune and the autoimmune growth.
Okay.
So I haven't seen any studies regarding the genetic disorders. I will definitely see into it, but so far I have come across this literature.
Okay. Thank you, Sampada.
Thank you.
Any other further questions?
Has everybody asked questions, Garvita?
No, ma'am.
Then ask them to ask questions.
Devanshi, Neha, do you want to ask something or add something to this?
I had the same type of question that Mansi ma'am had asked about the policies in Gujarat, and like again, what vegetarians, how can we convince them, and how can we uh, change their belief system, or at least how can we make them aware? So I think they discussed that at the very start.
Yeah, so cultural beliefs are the strongest ones. So maybe it will take time, but if we give them the other scenario of regarding this nutrition, that how these fish and seafoods are high in nutrition and how they could actually help in their growth for their good for their baby's development. So maybe some of them will consider, but we can at least try and we can share our knowledge and impart knowledge to the community.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sampada,
Yes, ma'am.
how can you see, you can't be changing anybody's religious beliefs and culture.
Right, ma'am. Right, ma'am.
So that's a different question in a story altogether. But my question is, how can you make fish and seafood more easily available in this country to people who are already consuming?
Okay. So, ma'am, more available is first of all the proper transportation, I would believe. So, from the coastal areas, so the proper supply and the supply management should be done, the proper transportation,
So are you aware
keeping.
of what are the current policies and what government is doing, and how can we actually empower or strengthen that program or policy?
Uh, Ma'am, the particular policies I don't know about it, but if we want to make the difference, or we could just try to make some changes in these policies. So first and foremost, how we could preserve the fish, and with keeping all the nutrients, and how the proper transportation with keeping in mind the proper sanitation and hygiene, and the supply and the transportation system should be good enough that it could reach to the corners of the countries. So that could be my take on this.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll take a separate class on this to give you
Yes,
more.
ma'am.
Uh, and over to you, Gapita, for conclusion.
Garvita, wait a minute. Sabat is asking a question. Do you suggest some? Okay. Yeah, Sabat. So some specific species of fish, like in seafood, that we have already discussed. Some um, freshwater fishes that is available in the that is there. Those are available. Those fish could actually help in improving the nutritional status. As and we keep into the mind that we need to choose some fishes that are low in mercury, so the levels of mercury should be less in the fishes, so in that way we could identify which type of food we could which type of fish food we could consume and which should be avoided. And the preservation of sea salt while
Meghna is also asking. She is asking that preservation of seafoods while
yes.
transportation.
Yes, yes. So, yes, preservation of seafood, that is curing, but there are a lot of other techniques also has been emerging these days. So the lot of freezing techniques and lot of drying techniques are also available. So that could also could be used as a preservation for seafoods. And yes, the dry and yes, this ice and the salt could be one of the thing for the preservation.
Uh, Ma'am, may I conclude today's session?
Yes, please.
So, summing up today's session, Vanisha ma'am introduced the theme of today's session. Then, our speaker of the day, Sampada, she discussed about 17 goals, sustainable development goals. She focused on 14th goal and second goal, that is life below water and zero hunger. She described the FAO's data. She pointed towards sun, that is scaling up of nutrition framework. She described about variety of fishes along with classification of fishes. She described composition and nutritive value of fish and compared protein values of different types of fishes. She compared fat part along with minerals and vitamins. She discussed about fish proteins concentrate along with seafood consumption during pregnancy and benefits of fish consumption during pregnancy. She discussed about hitting milestones along with guidelines as per FDA. She described role of omega-3 fatty acid in controlling preterm births. She discussed fish and seafoods for children. She pointed towards role of seafood in developing big brains, healthy eyes, strong bones, less stress, and breathe well. She discussed about best food choices in children as well as choices to avoid, including tilefish and shark. She described advice about eating food using a chart given by EPA and US Food and Drug Association. She briefly classified the scope for fishery sector in India. She discussed about importance of fisheries in developing countries. She introduced aquaculture as fastest growing sector, along with discussing about algae, seaweeds, and micro algae. She described needs of sustainable aquaculture. She discussed how aquaculture fits into UN Sustainable Development Goals. She pointed out towards how aquaculture creates economic opportunities. She discussed about advances in technology, how sea feed is good for health, and how aquaculture can preserve culture heritage. She discussed how aquaculture as resource efficient method and about ecosystem. She discussed several threats of oceans, about dead zones, plastic marine pollution. She discussed about data of SDG development goals to 2021. So I would like to conclude the session by thanking Vanisha ma'am for giving us this wonderful opportunity, and thank you to the speaker of the day, Miss Sampada, for discussing this session so well and presenting and organizing such beautifully and covering everything. So thank you,
Thank you, Garvita, for moderation. Thank you so much.
thank you, Sampada.